After my father passed away, I took a few days off from work to manage the funeral arrangements by myself. My wife declined to join me, claiming she was too emotionally exhausted from her exercise class. When I returned home, I sat at the kitchen table clutching his watch, the only keepsake he left for me. She entered the room, noticed it, and remarked that he wasn't that remarkable. Maybe now I would stop using him as a reason for my shortcomings. Then she snatched it from my hand, tossed it in the trash, and told me to mature. I retrieved it without saying a word. This morning, my ex-wife arrived, shouting while wearing a bathrobe and with wet hair. He took everything. This is my first time posting, but I've been observing for years. Never thought I would be one of those guys sharing these kinds of stories. But here I am. Life can change quickly. Dad died 3 weeks ago from pancreatic cancer, a silent aggressor. By the time they discovered it, he was already at stage 4, 2 months from diagnosis to burial. He was 64. Have you ever had that moment when you realize the person next to you is essentially a stranger? That's where I find myself right now, sitting on my back porch at 2 a.m., typing this on my phone with trembling hands. Where do I begin? Dad was a mechanic his entire life. Blue collar, calloused hands, the sort of guy who would help anyone stranded on the road without expecting anything back. When I was 12, he took me fishing every Sunday, not because he particularly enjoyed it. He actually disliked being still for so long, but because he understood I needed that quiet time with him. Those mornings on the lake taught me more about patience and resilience than any motivational podcast ever could. Michelle, my wife of 6 years, never really understood my dad. She would make little remarks about his accent, or how he didn't know which fork to use at fancy restaurants. I brushed it off, thinking she was joking. She came from a different background. Private schools, European vacations, the whole package. I thought our differences made us intriguing to one another. What a misjudgment that turned out to be. When Dad became ill, I started spending weekends at his place, assisting with grocery shopping, doctor visits, and eventually the more serious matters when he could no longer get out of bed. Michelle came only once. During her visit, she spent the entire time glued to her phone, dramatically opening windows because she couldn't tolerate the hospital smell. Dad noticed, but being Dad, he just winked at me and said she must be busy with important matters. Important. Matters like her spin class and brunch with her friends, while I worked 10-hour shifts. 2 days before he passed, Dad asked a nurse for help reaching under his pillow. He pulled out an old Tissot watch, nothing extravagant by today's standards, but it was his most cherished possession. He received it after 3 decades at the same garage, the back engraved with his name and years of service. He pressed it into my palm and told me he was proud of the man I had become. I won't hide the fact that I broke down. This was a man who raised me alone after Mum left when I was 8, who worked extra shifts to pay for my community college, who taught me how to change a tire, how to treat others with respect, and how to persevere when everything feels impossible. When he finally passed away, I was holding his hand. Michelle was at a spa day with her college friend, saying she couldn't reschedule because it was non-refundable. Is anyone still reading this? Am I the crazy one here? The funeral was small, just me, a couple of Dad's old friends from the garage, and his sister from Ohio. Michelle texted that morning, saying she felt unwell after her spin class and was too emotionally drained to attend. I didn't even bother replying. I took 3 days off work to manage everything, cleaned out his apartment alone, donated most of his possessions because that's what he would have wanted, keeping only a few items: his toolbox, the fishing rod, a photo album, and the watch. That watch became my lifeline, a tangible connection to him that I could hold on to. When I got back, I was sitting at our kitchen table, looking at the watch, reminiscing about him telling me how he got it. When Michelle walked in with her protein shake and workout attire, she glanced at me and rolled her eyes at me sitting there quietly, not bothering anyone. I'll never forget what she said. The words are etched in my mind. She told me frankly that my dad wasn't that great, and that maybe now I'd stop using him as an excuse for being weak. Then, in a shocking move, she snatched the watch from my hand, tossed it in the kitchen trash, and told me to grow up. Time seemed to freeze. Something inside me went cold. I didn't shout or cry. I simply got up, reached into the trash past the coffee grounds and eggshells, and took back the only thing my father left me. I wiped it off, placed it in my pocket, and said nothing. She stormed off to shower as if nothing had happened. as if she hadn't just revealed herself to be someone I no longer recognized. That night, I lay awake beside her, listening to her breathe, wondering how we got here. 6 years together, a mortgage, discussions about kids in the future. All of it suddenly felt like a surreal dream from which I needed to awaken. The next morning, I called my friend Zachary. We've been friends since high school, and he's always been the rational one, the guy who thinks before he acts. We met for beers after work, and I shared everything. The first question Zachary asked was whether she had always been this way, or if I was just now seeing it clearly. That question hit me hard because, looking back, the signs were everywhere. Constant little jabs about my clothes, my friends, my interests, the eye rolls when I discussed work, the jokes about how she married down but was noble enough to see past my background, and the way she spent my money, our money, as if it were nothing. $400 on face creams, $3,000 on a couch that no one was allowed to sit on. Meanwhile, I had to justify spending $30 on a video game. Zachary listened quietly, nursing his beer, then asked to see my phone. He scrolled through my banking app, whistled low, and showed me something I had completely overlooked. Over the past year, Michelle had been transferring small amounts, $200 here, $300 there, from our joint account to her personal one, totaling nearly $15,000, money that was meant for our future. When I got home that night, I started paying closer attention, really paying attention. I checked her Instagram while she was in the shower and found DMs where she complained to her friends about having to deal with my sadness and made jokes about my daddy issues. I saw texts to her mom about being stuck with a guy who would never advance in life. And then I discovered something else. Messages with her personal trainer, filled with late-night exchanges and "can't wait to see you tomorrow" notes. It's like the blinders came off, and I was seeing everything with painful clarity for the first time. So here's what I've decided. Michelle thinks I'm weak, thinks my father, the strongest, most decent man I've ever known, wasn't that great. She's about to learn what true strength looks like. I'm not confronting her. Not yet. For now, I'm documenting everything. The money transfers, the texts, the emotional mistreatment that I somehow normalized over the years. I'm gathering my resources, making plans, and I'm wearing my dad's watch every day. She despises seeing it on my wrist and makes little comments about it being tacky and outdated. Each time she does, I just smile and nod because she has no idea what's coming. This morning, I discovered something on my personal laptop. It had synced with the cloud and showed login history from when I was at the funeral. Michelle had gone through my emails, messages, and personal files, searching for my life insurance policy, bank accounts, and investment information. The woman, who couldn't be bothered to attend my father's funeral, somehow found the energy to dig for my financial details while I was burying him. That was the final straw. I'm meeting with a lawyer tomorrow. I've already moved most of my important documents to a safety deposit box, along with Dad's watch when I'm not wearing it. I don't know exactly what the next few weeks will bring, but I know this. The man who raised me deserved better than her disrespect, and honestly, so do I. I'll provide updates when there's more to share. Thanks for reading this far. Sometimes, just writing it out helps make sense of the chaos. Update. I wasn't expecting my last post to gain so much attention. Thank you for all the support and advice. Reading your comments made me realize I'm not crazy for feeling the way I do. That validation means more than you know. It's been 2 weeks since my last update, 2 of the most eye-opening weeks of my life. You know that feeling when you're playing a video game and you suddenly level up? Everything becomes clearer and you can see things you couldn't before. That's what's happening to me right now. Each day, I notice something new about Michelle that I somehow missed or ignored for years. Zachary has been an absolute rock throughout all of this. The kind of friend waits with beer and pizza when you're at your lowest, but also calls you out on your nonsense. When I started talking about confronting Michelle in some dramatic showdown, he shut that down quickly. Smart guy, that Zachary. Instead, we've been meticulously preparing for what he calls the extraction, a military-precise plan for my exit strategy. First, I opened a new bank account at a completely different bank and started transferring small amounts. Nothing that would raise her suspicion, just enough to build a cushion. The most surreal part? Acting normal around Michelle, smiling at her jokes, pretending I didn't see her texting Gustavo right beside me on the couch, listening to her vent about her friend Michaela's promotion that should have been hers. nodding along while she criticized my dad's old flannel shirts, all while wearing his watch every single day. She despises that watch so much. Sometimes I catch her staring at it with pure contempt. Once, she accidentally knocked it off the nightstand, then seemed genuinely surprised when it didn't break. German engineering, baby. Built to last, unlike our marriage. 3 days ago, I had a moment of weakness. We were having dinner. Takeout that I paid for, as usual. And she was being nice, laughing at my jokes, asking about my day. For a brief moment, I wondered if I was overreacting, if maybe we could fix this. Then she received a text, and her entire demeanor shifted. She excused herself to call her mum and was gone for 20 minutes. When she returned, her lipstick was freshly applied. Who reapplies lipstick to talk to their mum on the phone? That night, after she fell asleep, I checked her location history on her tablet that she always leaves charging in the kitchen. Guess where she's been going 3 times a week when she's supposedly at her women-only spin class? To an apartment complex across town, the same complex where, according to his social media, Gustavo lives. What a cliché, right? The wife and the personal trainer. If it weren't happening to me, I'd probably laugh. Last weekend was a turning point. Michelle announced she was going on a girls' retreat with Michaela and some other friends, a whole weekend at a fancy spa resort. She asked me to transfer $2,000 to her personal account for it. I transferred the money without complaint, and then called Michaela. I've always gotten along well with Michaela. She's one of the few of Michelle's friends I actually enjoy talking to, a genuine person, no pretense. So I asked her about the girls' retreat. There was a long pause on the phone, and then Michaela, bless her honest soul, told me there was no retreat. She hadn't seen Michelle in weeks. That confirmation was all I needed. This was really happening. The plan was in motion. While Michelle was away on her retreat, aka shacked up with Gustavo for the weekend, I executed the extraction. First stop, the bank. I withdrew the remaining balance from our joint accounts, leaving exactly half of our shared savings. I'm not a thief. The look on the teller's face when I withdrew that much cash was priceless. I had to explain I wasn't being coerced at gunpoint or something. Next, I cancelled all joint credit cards and removed myself as an authorized user, except for one, her favorite shopping card with the high limit. I left that one active for reasons. Then, the apartment. I signed a lease earlier that week on a simple 1-bedroom place. Nothing fancy, but it's clean and it's mine. Zachary and his brother helped me move the essentials in record time. My clothes, my dad's toolbox, some kitchenware, my gaming setup, the fishing rod. We left all the furniture, all the expensive stuff she insisted we needed. The $33,000 couch no one can sit on. The artisanal coffee table made from reclaimed driftwood that cost more than my first car, and the countless decorative pillows. The only valuable I took was Dad's watch, currently resting on my wrist as I type this. For the final touches, I left a copy of the divorce papers on the kitchen table. Simple and clean. No dramatic note, no accusations, just the documents and my wedding ring. I also left printouts of her text exchanges with Gustavo, her location history screenshots, and the bank statements showing her secret transfers. And I left one more thing, a receipt for the safety deposit box where I've moved my dad's watch, when I'm not wearing it because I know she'll try to get to it. The one thing that truly matters to me. Then, I blocked her number, muted her on all social media, but didn't unfriend or unfollow. I need to keep tabs and waited. That was yesterday. She's supposed to come home tonight. I'm sitting in my new apartment right now. It's sparse, echoing, with a mattress on the floor and my laptop on a folding table. But it's mine, and it's peaceful. My phone has been blowing up with messages from her friends. Apparently, she's been telling people for months that I'm unstable and obsessively fixated on my dad's death, setting the stage to paint me as the villain when this all falls apart. Nice try, Michelle. Oh, and the joint credit card I left active just sent an alert. She charged nearly $3,000 at some high-end boutique, probably stress shopping. Spend it while you can, babe. The lawyer says I've done everything right legally. I'm in the clear. Morally, well, that's more complicated. Sometimes, I wake up at 3 a.m., wondering if I should have tried harder to save the marriage, if there were signs I should have seen, if I could have acted differently. Then, I remember how she looked at me when she threw my dad's watch in the trash, like I was nothing, like he was nothing. And I remember I'm doing exactly what Dad would have wanted. He always told me to never let anyone make me feel small, not ever. I'm not being vindictive. I'm not trying to hurt her. I just refuse to be disrespected anymore by her or anyone else. Dad raised me better than that. For the first time in years, I feel like I can breathe. Like I'm waking up from a long, strange dream where I was slowly shrinking myself to fit someone else's idea of who I should be. No more. Tomorrow is going to be interesting. I've taken the day off work and am going fishing at the lake where Dad used to take me. It seems fitting somehow. I'll provide updates when the inevitable hits the fan because it will. Michelle doesn't handle not getting her way very well. Thanks again for the support, Reddit. Sometimes strangers on the internet understand more than the person sleeping next to you for 6 years. Final update. Well, Reddit. It happened. I'm sitting in a diner right now, hands still shaking a little as I type this on my phone. The waitress keeps giving me concerned looks as I alternate between laughing to myself and staring blankly at my untouched eggs. I must look like a complete psycho. It's been exactly 3 days since I moved out and left those divorce papers on the kitchen table. 3 days of blessed silence. Well, except for the 50-something missed calls and hundreds of texts that I've been documenting but not responding to. This morning at 6:43 a.m., that silence was shattered. Remember how I mentioned Michelle doesn't know where my new apartment is? It turns out there was one place she could think to look. Zachary's house. Zachary has been my best friend since we were 14. She knows we're close, so naturally, that's where she went looking. At 6:30 this morning, Zachary was awakened by someone banging on his front door, as if they were trying to break it down. He stumbled out of bed, thinking it might be an emergency. What he found instead was Michelle, hair wet and unkempt, wearing nothing but a bathrobe and slippers, screaming at the top of her lungs. "He took everything." Those were her exact words, according to Zachary's detailed text to me. Zachary, being the absolute legend he is, didn't open the door fully. He just cracked it with the chain still on, rubbed his eyes, and asked what the hell she was doing at his house at that hour. Apparently, she launched into a wild rant about how I had emptied the accounts, vanished, and ruined her life, all while standing on his front porch in a bathrobe, giving the whole neighborhood a free show. When Zachary calmly pointed out that I had only taken my half of our assets and left her ample documentation explaining why, she completely lost it. She started crying, then screaming, then crying again. The kicker? She demanded to know where I was hiding her money. Her money, not our money. That's when Zachary, who'd had enough of her nonsense for a lifetime, asked her a simple question. If it was all her money, why was my name on the paychecks that earned it? Boom, mic drop. She tried to push past him into his house, and that's when he shut the door, locked it, and called me. I told him to call the police if she wouldn't leave. He didn't have to. The neighbor across the street had already done it because apparently a screaming woman in a bathrobe at 6:30 a.m. tends to disturb the peace. By the time the cops arrived, Michelle had progressed to sitting on Zachary's front steps, sobbing into her phone. She was trying to get Gustavo to come pick her up, but surprise, he wasn't answering. The cops were surprisingly chill about the whole situation. They asked her to leave, offered her a ride home, the usual. She initially refused, insisting she wouldn't leave until she spoke to me. That's when one of them mentioned that if she didn't leave voluntarily, they'd have to consider this trespassing. Suddenly, she was very eager to accept that ride home. She screamed one last thing at Zachary's house. Something about how my father would be ashamed of me. Wrong move, Michelle. Dead wrong. Now, let me backtrack a bit. The last 3 days have been a strange mix of freedom and anxiety. My new apartment feels both empty and full at the same time. Empty of stuff, full of possibility. I've been sleeping better than I have in years. No eggshells to walk on, no criticism to brace for. I set up a therapy appointment with someone named Cheryl, whom my lawyer recommended, and had my first session yesterday. I cried like a baby talking about Dad. It was needed. I've been going through old photos and found one of Dad teaching me to change a tire when I was about 10. His hands over mine, showing me how to tighten the lug nuts. That patient half smile he always had. I put that one in a frame next to my bed. Work has been a welcome distraction. My co-workers know something's up but haven't pushed. They've just invited me to lunch, keeping things normal. I appreciate that more than they know. Yesterday, I finally answered a call from Michelle's mum. She's always been decent, to me, despite raising a daughter who, well, you know. The conversation was awkward but necessary. She wanted to know my side of things because Michelle had been telling her I had some sort of psychotic break and abandoned her. I didn't unload everything. I just calmly explained that I discovered Michelle's affair, her financial deceit, and couldn't remain in a marriage with someone who treated my father's memory with such disrespect. Then, I sent her screenshots of some choice texts between Michelle and Gustavo. There was a long silence on the phone, and then she said something that knocked me sideways. She had always worried something like this would happen. It turns out Michelle has a pattern. Her high school boyfriend, her college fiancé who called off the wedding 2 weeks before it was supposed to happen. All relationships that ended because of her infidelity and manipulation. Her mom apologized to me, actually apologized, saying she should have warned me somehow but thought Michelle had changed. People don't change. They just get better at hiding who they really are. After we hung up, I sent similar evidence to Michelle's dad and brother, not out of spite, but because I know she's probably spinning a tale where I'm the villain. I'm done being painted as the bad guy. Now back to this morning. Now back to this. After Michelle's dramatic performance at Zachary's, I decided it was time to break my silence. I texted her a simple message. Meet me at Grove Park, 2 p.m., public place, broad daylight. She responded immediately with 3 heart emojis and a thank you, as if we were going to reconcile or something. Delusional doesn't begin to cover it. I arrived at the park 30 minutes early and sat on a bench near the duck pond. Dad used to bring me here as a kid. It felt fitting. When Michelle finally showed up, she had pulled herself together. Designer sunglasses, perfect hair, expensive outfit. But I could see the cracks in her facade. Slightly smudged mascara, the tremor in her hands as she clutched her purse. She sat down next to me and immediately launched into what sounded like a rehearsed speech about forgiveness, second chances, and how we could work through this. I let her talk for almost 5 minutes. I just sat there, watching the ducks, letting her words wash over me. Then I turned and looked at her, really looked at her. For the first time in our relationship, I interrupted her and told her I knew everything. The affair with Gustavo, the money transfers, the lies to her friends about me, the way she talked about my dad behind my back. Her face went through a range of expressions: shock, denial, anger, fear, and then finally, calculation. I could almost see the gears turning as she tried to determine what angle to play. She went with tears, starting to cry about how sorry she was, how Gustavo meant nothing, how she'd been stressed and made mistakes, how she'd do anything to fix things. I simply held up my hand, didn't raise my voice, didn't get angry, just calmly told her that the divorce was happening and there was nothing she could do to stop it. That's when the mask slipped completely off. She hissed that I was making the biggest mistake of my life, that no one would ever love me like she did, that I was pathetic for being so hung up on my father's death. Then she said the thing that confirmed I was making the right choice. She told me that if I just let her throw away that stupid watch, we wouldn't be in this mess. That's when I rolled up my sleeve to show her I was wearing it. Right then, Dad's watch, still ticking away perfectly after all these years. The look on her face was worth every second of the last 6 years. I stood up, told her my lawyer would be in touch, and walked away while she was still shouting after me about alimony and how she'd take me for everything. Good luck with that, when there's evidence of her affair and financial misconduct. When I got to my car, my phone buzzed with a text from Gustavo. Apparently, Michelle had been bombarding his phone too. He said he was done with the drama and was blocking her number, attaching a screenshot of her threatening to inform his other clients about their relationship if he didn't help her financially. That's the thing about people like Michelle. When the chips are down, they always show their true colors. It's been a few hours since the confrontation at the park, and I've received no fewer than 27 messages from Michelle, ranging from apologetic to threatening to bizarrely nostalgic. I haven't responded to any of them. According to Michaela, who's been keeping me updated, Michelle has been calling everyone we know, trying to borrow money. Her credit cards are maxed out, the mortgage payment is due in 3 days, and Gustavo has apparently changed his locks. Real weakness isn't grieving your father. Real weakness isn't cherishing a memento he left you. Real weakness is building your entire life on lies and manipulation and then falling apart when it all comes crashing down. Dad used to tell me the truth always rises to the surface, son. Like oil on water. You can't keep it down forever. He was right. He was always right. Tonight, I'm going to visit his grave and bring him some of those terrible hard candies. I'll tell him how I finally found my backbone. I think he'd be proud. I don't know what happens next. The divorce will take time, and rebuilding my life will take even longer. But for the first time in years, I'm genuinely excited about the future. Oh, and something unexpected happened yesterday. I ran into Mara at the grocery store, an old friend from high school I'd lost touch with. We started talking in the cereal aisle. She asked about the watch I was wearing, and I told her about Dad. She actually listened, didn't check her phone once, asked thoughtful questions. We're getting coffee next week, just as friends, but still, it's nice to feel seen, really seen. For those who have followed this entire saga, thank you. Writing it out helped me process everything. Sometimes you need strangers on the internet to confirm you're not going crazy. One last thing. Whatever your equivalent of Dad's watch is in your life, the thing that means everything to you, but might seem insignificant to others, don't let anyone make you feel small for valuing it, not ever.